All In Sports Network. We love sports.
It is All In Aggies. I'm your host, Ben Peck, on this beautiful Wednesday here in Aggie land. We are turning our attention this week, of course, to the Missouri Tigers. On today's show, we're going to talk about Marcel Reed, and we heard from him on Monday, how this game kind of sets him up for the rest of the year and that quarterback situation. I will say, I don't know about the public sentiment. I know on here and Twitter, it's like 85% Marcel Reed to Wigman. I am starting to see a little bit, maybe it was out there and I just didn't come across it as much. A little bit more, especially from some of the national folks saying, unsure exactly what we're going to do moving forward. When you look at A&M, is it going to be Connor Wigman? Is it going to be Marcel Reed? I have thoughts on that. I've actually moved more into the Marcel Reed camp, but there are caveats. So we'll discuss that. We'll hear from Coach Elko and Marcel Reed breaking down his performance against Arkansas. And we'll also just do a quick trip around campus, talk about some of the other big matches, games going on for the other programs in season. Specifically today, we'll just give a quick shout out to volleyball and soccer. They have been going through SEC play and making waves, I would say. So, nonetheless, let's look ahead to Marcel Reed against Mizzou. My first initial thing is Marcel Reed is going to start this game. I don't have any insider information. I just listen, reading the tea leaves. Coach Drinkwitz actually basically alluded to this. He said, obviously they started the last 3 games and they've won, but more importantly for me, they threw him out there in the Monday press conference. I don't think you do that. Now, I know he played well against Arkansas or, had good moments, and we didn't get to talk to him after the Arkansas game. Maybe it's their way of making up for that. But I would be shocked if you're doing that, if you're not pretty sure he's eventually going to be the guy. And again, the other thing is, Connor Wigman hasn't been able to throw, even dress out the last couple games. And then if he's maybe able to be ready by Saturday, but who knows how much he's actually able to practice until then, I don't think you throw him in cold against Missouri when Marcel Reed has been more than adequate and he has not been a liability. Could he be better? Yes, and we'll talk about that. But he has not held you back in that sense. So, I guess I'll go right to this. This is Mike Elko and Marcel Reed talking about kind of his progression, and specifically with the deep ball. That is something that was encouraging for me in the sense that we saw A&M take some real shots against Arkansas. That, I don't know if it was mostly dictated by what they were doing defensively, but we have been clamoring for, hey, we want to see that tool in the tool belt if and when you need it. And we did see some that connected, some that were close. And in particular, there was the one to Noah Thomas. I think there was a penalty on the play. I think it was still, I don't have it up in front of me. I want to say it was maybe holding on Arkansas or roughing the passer. Either way, it was still a catchable ball. But here is Mike Elko and Marcel Reed talking about number 10 there, back in the pocket for Texas A&M.
How would you gauge Marcel Reed's progress after 3 starts? And is the throwing deep, you feel like the accuracy, is that just something that comes with time and more reps?
Yeah, I think probably a combination of things. Certainly some throws he wishes he'd have back. I still think we're not getting to spacing in the right way, so the timing of our route concepts isn't always exactly how we want it to be too, and so it's always a combination, and then timing sometimes is the offensive line forcing the throw a little bit quicker than we want to throw it, and so I think it hits at every level. Do I think it will get better? Yes, I think we've seen it better. We just got to get it to translate consistently onto the field the way he wants to, and I think he's still making progress every single week. I do. When we put the film on, we still feel like we see positive strides forward every single week from him. He's young. He's made 4 starts, and there's still some ups and downs that come with it. But, again, ton of confidence in him continuing to move forward as we go.
Yeah, I try my best to work on the deep ball and put them in the right place for certain receivers. A lot of receivers track balls differently, and then a lot of people want the ball in different places just by size or speed, stuff like that. And then, I mean, a lot of people don't really know. I mean, things change in the game. When you get pressure, you got something in your face, you got to move around, stuff like that. The ball's not always going to be perfect. So, I mean, I try my best to put it in a place where they can get the ball, but it's something I got to work on for sure.
Yeah, you see the flag there in the secondary. Pretty sure that was holding, so that maybe could have made a difference, but still, I'd have to go back and look at it. I'm not sure what the better ball you get there, but that was one where, again, just in terms of like, hey, they're taking shots, and it was even with the flag, it was almost there. That got me excited. And listen, I think the most exciting thing for Marcel Reed in terms of like his floor is he let's say the deep ball never really comes together as a consistent, reliable weapon. I think it can. We saw the Texas Bowl, how he played in that game, and we've seen him in moments. But let's just say, for sake of argument, it never really comes together. It's a little inconsistent. You can't really count on it. The thing that I like about Marcel Reed is even if you just say, hey, here's a couple reads, quick, easy throws. By the way, that play to Noah Thomas a touchdown, I wouldn't even necessarily consider that a deep ball. I think maybe more that was like an intermediate route that got broken. I know it was beyond the first down marker, which that's even progress because how long were we talking about A&M not having a pass more than 15 yards down the field? So even that's a little bit of progress. But if you just say, hey, here are your reads, pretty simple, and if you don't feel it, you don't see it, get what you can with your feet. Obviously you got to protect yourself. Don't, put him out there to take a beating, but that's, like the touchdown there on the read option. I know that was a designed play, but that is, I think, the exciting part with Marcel Reed that you say kind of what we've seen to this point is I don't know that, aside from taking care of the ball, which he's done a good job of, if that were to change, but beyond that, I don't know that it would get any worse than it is now. That's, in my opinion, the most exciting thing about Marcel Reed. I don't think, the McNeese State game, the way he came in there was a little more inaccurate and everything else, but especially given the competition. But really, again, you're coming in, the game's blown open. After a few series, you've got some backups in there with you. So that one's a tough game to evaluate for me. But listen, I mean, if he can put together the running ability, the deep ball on a consistent basis, and teams start to, have to respect both equally what he can do with his arm and what he can do with his legs, and you feel like, man, if we commit to him in the box, then he's going to beat us over the top and vice versa. He kind of reminds me, don't go crazy if this gets around SEC Twitter sphere. He kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the tools that we saw like from a young Jalen Milroe. I think back to the game A&M at Alabama when Jalen Milroe came in short notice. I think Bryce Young had gone down with an injury. And, Milroe is, I think, a better runner. He's faster. But he is elusive in the same sense. He's shifty, but how he is developed as a quarterback and being able to operate in the pocket, like that arc is kind of, I'm hopeful you can see something similar with that with Marcel Reed to say, hey, he's always got what he can do with his legs. I think he's maybe a little more elusive than he is pure speed compared to what Milroe was at the time. Not that Milroe wasn't elusive. It's just a slightly different type of running there. I think Milroe's arm has always been a little bit better, a little bit stronger, maybe accuracy maybe about the same at this point. So maybe there's a difference there. I think Marcel on his best day would like to be more of a pocket passer than, say, a young Jalen Milroe, even at this stage. So maybe that's where I would differentiate. But, I mean, just in terms of like, hey, he's able to make a play with his legs if it's not there. He can throw it deep. He's got the arm. He he can put some zip on the ball if there's an open intermediate passing route, and we'll see what he can do. I know that's high praise for Marcel, and we got a long way to go. But listen, that also just speaks to how much Jalen Milroe improved over the years. But I think people forget, like, Jalen Milroe, when he started off, did not look like – I mean, he looked like a liability going into last year when everyone was saying, Bama, maybe you can get them because maybe they're not as crazy. I think a lot of that had to do with Jalen Milroe. Are we sure he's really the guy? Unfortunately, if I remember right, he kind of had – I mean, he got sacked a lot, but he kind of had the coming out party against Texas A&M with what he did with some of the deep passes there. But, you know, he was shaky at times. Marcel Reed, I don't think – I can't think back to exactly how I would stack him up to Milroe in terms of being shaky, that level, shaky, whatever. But my point is there's room to grow. We've seen flashes. We've seen the tools, and you see how it can progress in like the best case scenario, which would be a Jalen Milroe. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Marcel Reed. Not trying to put too much on him. Not trying to diminish what Jalen Milroe has become. But I like what I see in terms of those tools. Also, I think more importantly for Marcel, this is the last time for Marcel Reed. Let me start that over. I might clip this. This game against Mizzou is a chance where Marcel Reed controls his own destiny to be the starting quarterback for Texas A&M. And this might be his last opportunity to truly control his own destiny in that regard. After this, you've got the bye, and then you go to Mississippi State. My hunch, if we see Connor Wigman come back and really make a push to reclaim that starting job, it will be starting with that Mississippi State game. I think if he's still not available then, it's probably too far gone. But if he can be ready by Mississippi State, and Marcel Reed has not been consistent enough, you have that bye week if you're Connor Wigman as an opportunity, and the week leading up to Mississippi State to earn a spot on the field in Starkville against the Bulldogs and potentially go on to take that over. Now, if Marcel Reed wins this game, is kind of what we've seen to this point. Has good moments, has moments that you'd like to have back. He could still be the starter moving forward. I'm not saying that. And again, a lot of that has to do with how much Connor Wigman is able to practice through the bye weekend leading up to Mississippi State. But if Marcel Reed goes out against Mizzou and has his best game to this point of the season, maybe not quite Texas Bowl level, but approaching that territory, and A&M gets the win, I mean, maybe even the win's enough. But I think more importantly, if he can show that he's making plays with his arms and his legs, I do not see how you take the ball out of his hands. Now, if you get another kind of clunky win over Mizzou, similar to Arkansas, even though Mizzou's a top 10 team, I don't think that necessarily closes the door on Connor Wigman being able to return. But if he goes out there and he dominates and he makes plays happen on a regular basis, I don't think you can take the ball away from him moving forward. And this is truly the last opportunity he has, in my opinion, to win the starting job by his own accord. After that, it would come down to competition and camp, and he still might win it. But this is his chance to really, I think, kind of make it going into the bye week, say, hey, we have our guy. Connor, we need you to be available in case he falters. But Marcel, until further notice, until a roadblock appears, you are the guy and you're getting the ball. So we'll see. That usually brings out the best in people. I think Marcel was put up against it. And obviously he's, been able to prepare and start and everything else. So it's not nearly as chaotic of circumstances going into this game. But, we saw how he handled the Texas Bowl. Again, people forget. I know people know that he played, but you've got to remember, that was not the plan. Jalen Henderson, I think first play from scrimmage, if I'm not mistaken, at least for A&M. And then he goes out and does that. Now, I know he was the number 2, so it's not like he was number 3 or number 4 quarterback for that game and still somehow pulled this off. But and you had all the extra bowl practices to get ready. I understand all that, but he showed me a lot with how his like maturity in terms of being able to prepare and being ready for the moment. And obviously, as I just said, he's got a lot more, a lot easier of a road getting ready for this game, given that he's been starting for now 4 weeks, if he does indeed start this week, and he's had all those weeks of practice. But that was a game, the Texas Bowl, I bring that up. That was a game where Marcel Reed was put up with his back against the wall. This is a game where the team has a really special opportunity. He has a really special opportunity. He's had that little wiggle room to work with the 3 starts that he's had. The Florida game was great. Bowling Green game was adequate. I would say adequate for the last 2 games. Adequate, not exemplary, but it got the job done. But not good enough to the point where you say no questions asked. So we'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm excited. I think A&M probably. I don't have an official prediction in terms of like a score, but I do have a slight lean that A&M gets the job done on Saturday. Mizzou has not blown my socks off. The 2 really actual competitive teams they've played, Boston College and Vandy. I think Boston College, as we talked about, I think yesterday, does not look as impressive now as it did maybe then. And then Vanderbilt, I think Vanderbilt's much improved by Vanderbilt standards, but they're still Vanderbilt, and you're at home. And, I mean, you're essentially playing a team with, like, borrowed parts from a really good Conference USA team last year, New Mexico State. But, like, this is the SEC. Like, this is that type of team. I know they basically beat Auburn, that New Mexico State team, with Pavi and all them, but this is not a team that, if you're truly a top 10 team, that they should be able to hang around the way they did. So we'll see how the Tigers do. See how the Aggies do. I think another thing that I'm looking for is the defensive line continuing to come along. You know, we talked with Courtney Mims. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but I was talking with her at some point, whether on air or off air, about I think during the game with the Arkansas game. Again, if you missed it, our conversation with Courtney Mims from Picture All Nation previewing the Arkansas matchup, we talked about Taylor Green versus KJ Jefferson last year. I think some people maybe forget A&M got to KJ Jefferson a lot. I think they had 6 or 7 sacks after, similar to this year, they had been a little slow kind of getting into their groove in terms of the pure sack number. And they got to him, and you think, okay, well, maybe that's a little surprising. KJ Jefferson's a mobile quarterback, which he is, but compared to Taylor Green, he's not an elusive quarterback. He's just tough to bring down. And in order to bring him down, you've got to get to him in waves. And A&M's defensive line, obviously, is good enough to do that. Taylor Green is a different animal. He, just like the touchdown pass, I mean, that's the kind of marquee Taylor Green play. But he, even if you're there, he's tough to bring down. What excites me about the Mizzou game, I don't know that their offensive line has looked great. I think they've allowed 4 sacks, which might sound okay, but again, factor in 2 of those games against Buffalo and Murray State. My dad's alma mater. Shout out to the Racers. But Brady Cook reminds me of KJ Jefferson in that similar vein in terms of mobility. I know he can move a little bit. He's not a statue, but he's not a guy that is just going to have this crazy takeoff ability like we saw with Taylor Green. And if that's the case, I think A&M could have a field day if, obviously, being at home helps, but if they get into a situation where they build up a lead, and we've seen them start well in games, and they're forcing Mizzou to push the ball down the field, to up the tempo, and it just turns into too much to ask. In terms, if they can stay in the game and you can check down, get quick passes, go to Luther Bolden in the slot, Theo Weiss, I think Cooper, the other guy they got out there. If you can do that, if you're Mizzou, okay. But if you've got to and actually build little drives to get down the field and use the running back that they had, transfer from the App State team, but did not play in the App State game, by the way, for those curious. Noel, the running back from Mizzou. But if they can build a lead and basically force Mizzou to run routes that take time to develop, and Brady Cook is sitting back there, then I think that's where you have a potential to really bust it open. And again, this is a chance I don't want to spend too much time on it. We just talked a whole show about it yesterday. This is a chance for A&M to make a statement. I didn't even realize this, but it is the only top 25 matchup in the country. It's 11 a.m. It's not going to have, as far as being by game of the week standards, it is not going to have all the eyes on the world of it like you would a Georgia, Alabama, or even, that game, or even like a Notre Dame A&M. It's not going to have quite that much attention, but it will have a lot. And you could put yourself amongst the favorites to, if not, I wouldn't even say win the SEC, but I think in terms of making the SEC championship game, you are sort of, if you pull this off, dare I say, in the driver's seat. You could even lose a game to LSU or Texas, and then with one loss, can you get in there? Maybe. Again, I know there's other games in there as well, but Mississippi State and Auburn are two of them. That would get you up to 5 wins. And then, if you beat LSU and then you need 2 wins between LSU, Texas, and at South Carolina. Can you win 2 of those games, especially if Sellers is still banged up at South Carolina? I think it's doable. So we'll see. And that would get you to 7 wins. All right. Again, this is All In Aggies, All In Sports Network, Rogue Sports Media Network. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah. Also, speaking of comment, get in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. You agree, disagree, concerns you have, things you're excited about that's getting overlooked. I want to, as much as I love telling you my thoughts on all this stuff, I want to hear what you guys think. And I want to be able to, if one of you guys comments something to think about, food for thought, and we want to explore it together, that might be a direction I take the show the next day. I want to talk about things that are interesting to you guys and things that are on your mind, and kind of air those out a little bit, and do that together so that we can kind of have that back and forth, not just in an actual comment, but maybe we expand on some of those if there's aspects of the game you want to touch on. All right, before we go, real quick shout out, up against the clock here for my day job. Let's talk about, as I said, the other sports on campus. In particular, we will touch on volleyball and soccer. Listen, volleyball, really cool moment last Friday. Texas coming in. It's the first Texas A&M head-to-head matchup as SEC opponents. Volleyball has nearly more than 9,000 people. I think it was around 9,200 people, which was, I believe, a record. I love the subtle dig. It was a program record, and it was the largest regular season attendance for any program in the state of Texas. Just think about, consider who they were playing, and then think about that, and then realize the kind of low-key flex that was. Now, of course, disappointing the way the game played out. You lose to Texas 3-1. I will say, obviously, back-to-back national champions, even if it is a team that Aggie fans have a burning desire to defeat at every turn, you do have to give them their due. Back-to-back national champs. Although, I think it is notable to say A&M obviously pulls out a set. They tied up 2-2. They won, I want to say, the opening set of last year's matchup they had in the NCAA tournament. And then, Texas goes on to win the rest, and they go on to eventually win the title. But you're one of the few teams that takes a set off of Texas over the course of the year, and especially over the course of the tournament. That's something to feel good about. Third set was pretty competitive, very competitive. Fourth set was leaning Texas most of the time, but you at least gave yourself an opportunity. It wasn't like you were totally outclassed. So really excited to see what they do. And then on Sunday, dramatic. Man, I'm here watching football, thinking about going out to Reed Arena. Kind of overslept a little bit, missed the start of the game, but I'm thinking, oh man, 2-0. Yeah, it just doesn't look like their day. I guess I'll just sit back here and watch. And then slowly but surely, they win set 3, win set 4, win set 5, reverse sweep over the Tigers. What a way to start beat the hell out of Mizzou week. In that game, Emily Helmuth, 19 kills. Now keep in mind this is over 5 sets, so the raw numbers might be a little misleading. But I mean, percentage-wise, by the way, Pepperdine transfer, wanted to make sure I got that right. Hitting percentage-wise, though, 333. That's great. 324 for Logan Lednicki, 15 kills. Morgan Perkins, 500. Maddie Walk had a great day as a setter. But if you don't follow volleyball, you need to understand the setter is almost like the quarterback of the team. Everyone, think of your hitters as your wide receivers and your setter as your quarterback. If one can't do really well without the other, the libero is obviously sort of the defensive quarterback, so to speak, in that regard. But beyond that, once we get to attacking, good service leads to good hitting. And sometimes one can make the other look more impressive. If you have a Logan Lednicki and you're not necessarily, if I was setting to Logan Lednicki, she could still probably have a decent day. And if I had Maddie Walk setting for me, I could maybe look a lot better than I really am. But Maddie Walk, I think, has been pretty solid this year. And an LSU transfer, I think that's the part that excites me the most in terms of being able to not just have her on the team, but at the expense of one of your conference rivals. That's really exciting to see. They are 10-2, 1-1 in the SEC, and I think they will be kind of on the outside edge of the top 25 at some point this season, and a top half team in the SEC. So congrats to those ladies. And then soccer, a huge win, 4-1 over Auburn on Thursday. Sydney Becerra, 2 goals in that game. She is capable of having some extremely impressive, like world class level finishes. One was on a penalty, and then one late as Auburn was trying to kind of get back into the game. But A&M blitzed the Tigers. And Auburn came into this game number 6 in the country. They beat them 4-1. I should have probably led with that. But 3-0 until about 10 minutes left in the game. A&M picks up a red card. Tigers get one back, but then Becerra with one at the end to kind of tie a bow on it. And then you come up short 2 days after volleyball had played Texas. Soccer goes down to Austin to play the Longhorns. They come up short 2-0. I was able to catch the second half of that game live. Texas basically, what's her name? Emilia Villarreal, star freshman, had an impressive goal and a nice assist on the other goal to put Texas up 2-0. Aggies weren't really ever able to apply a ton of pressure in the second half. Like, they were in position, but they were just missing opportunities to either get a shot off, or when they did get shots off, to get them on goal and really in a threatening position. So, a hard-fought win for Texas there. As for the Aggies, they fall to 2-2 in the SEC, 7-5 overall. So I know that record might not sound great, but you've got to consider the level of people A&M has played to this point. I mean, the 2 losses, Texas, Oklahoma, 3 out of conference. You have Baylor, UConn, and Denver. Denver's the one that they'd obviously like to have back, but UConn, and the UConn game was kind of the opposite of what A&M did to Auburn. And then Texas falling 2-0 to the Longhorns. I think that's respectable enough. I know you want to win every game possible, but I say that to say, really, the UConn game is the only game this year that the Aggies have just been dominated. So, and then you see what they do against a team like Auburn. So that gives me hope that as the season goes on, A&M is a team that on any given day can really give you a tough matchup, be a difficult out. And if you know soccer, man, if there's maybe one sport, maybe golf and then soccer in terms of like anything can happen on any given day, that is it. You just have to be at the adequate level to be able to put yourself in position to capitalize on that if the opportunity presents itself. But I think A&M is definitely of that quality. I think too, early on in the season, they had Shea O'Rourke transfer go down with the torn ACL. She was going to be a big scoring option for them that did not I was going to say didn't pan out. Didn't pan out, not by any fault of her, but because of injury. And so I think this team was sort of trying to find itself in terms of how the attacking comes together. You lose Miley Hayes from last year. So A&M has done that. I think they're trending in the right direction. I like what I'm seeing with the Aggies there. All right, that's all the time we have for you today on All In Aggies. Again, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And by the way, some of those other sports, football included, we'll try to get out and have more footage and coverage. I know we talked about that earlier in the year and like the trailer for the channel and everything else. But Arkansas, sharing a ride. I don't want to hold somebody up to drive 3 hours back, already a late night. So kind of had to do what I had to do, get out of there. But Mizzou at home, have a little bit more time to really give a thorough, get some highlights, give you guys a look at my angles on some of this stuff. And again, as these A&M teams play more and more at home and we have more sports in season, you will see more original content here, not just press conference sound bites, but highlights and the like. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on Saturday's game against Mizzou between the Aggies and the Tigers. But until then, I'm Ben Peck, and we will see you back here on Thursday.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.